Hi, on this one, I completely wire the car from front to back. Thanks to Painless Performance. Let's go. Time for everybody's favorite part, wiring. Said no one ever. Huge thanks to Painless Performance. They provided me with a bunch of goodies for the 50 build, and I couldn't be. It's just awesome. They reached out to me and said they wanted to help out. So we kind of put a little bit of a list together on what it needed. And this is what we came up with. 28 circuit harness here. I have their power braid. It's a kit. It's got all kinds of like braid and tapes and everything in order to hide all the wires really nice. I got the main battery cables here, a bunch of lugs, a couple of fan relays. So that'll make wiring up those fans up front real easy. Some crimpers. They gave me some t-shirts, stickers, and a really sweet banner that I'm proud to hang up right next to the DEI because DEI helped out a lot too on this build. Yeah, so the first thing I got to do, I got to get all my main components in place. And then it's just basically a roadmap from there on, running wire to wire to wire to wire. So I want to get all my mains done first. So starting with the starter, I think that would make the most sense. Starter and then battery, work back, forth, get all my main powers situated and all the ground situated, and then I'll get that in, and then we'll go from there, but I'll update you along the way. For a starter, I went with Power Master. It's kind of an upgrade over stock. Comes with bolts and some spacers just in case you need it. I really like it because it's clockable, right? So it's a big billet piece on the end of there. And I'm going to clock it so that the lugs are down because them facing up, they kind of run into the crank angle sensor. It's just a crank sensor. And with them down, it's a lot easier to access, like, the wires and stuff to hook it all up. So I'm going to throw this in a second and then go from there. Moving on to the dash, I want to get this all sorted out and all my components in place here. I have a light switch. Billet matches my turn signals and stuff like that on the column. Got my digital dash all mounted up. I made that on a previous YouTube video, how I got that all mocked up into place where the stock gauges used to be. And then I added these switches. So these are latching switches. They'll light up blue when armed, but I think it's just a nice clean look. And now I have 4 optional switches. I can do like wipers and stuff like that. I don't really know what else, but I have the options. And then I also have the regular Terminator X little screen mounted up right there, nice and flush with the dash. So I can get all my readings off that. And then I also have a Painless Performance, just a key, normal key, GM style in the dash. I had to take a fender washer and open it up in order to fill in that hole because on these 50s, they're a lot bigger than they are in like regular cars. So that was that little task there to get that all sorted out. Next thing I want to do is I want to mount the 28 circuit where all the fuse block in the glove box. The way I'm going to do that, so I got the old glove box here. I'm going to make a new one. I'm going to make a new glove box out of some 1/8 inch thick ABS plastic, but first I need to make a template out of here. I don't need it this deep, but I just need it to be a lot stronger than, this 72-year-old thing that's all decomposing and falling apart. So I'm going to I'm going to carefully make out a template in order to transfer it over to a sheet of ABS plastic that I have over there. And then the circuit will mount kind of sideways in there. So it'll just give me nice, easy access. I can drop down the glove box and you don't have to be like underneath the dash trying to figure stuff out. I just like that option a lot better. And I'm going to run a center console with like a flip lid in order to do all my storage. So glove box, not really worried about storage. It will have a little bit extra storage on this side, but that's just where my insurance papers and stuff will go. Anyway, I'm talking too much. I'm going to build this. So there's the old glove box. Here's the template I made. And I cut it out of ABS plastic. Use much thinner stuff, I think 1/16 of an inch. And then heated up the edges with my heat gun and then just over top my bench here and just kind of bent it into shape. Stuff works out real nice when it hits that like flash point of melting or of you can bend it and stuff. And then for this edge here, I put it over my pipe, heated it up, and then I pressed it so it kind of has a little bit of a curve to it. And then I used some super glue and some kick. And then I super glued this end together, and then I just put put some tape over top of it just to kind of cover up the seam, because once it's in the car, like it looks professional enough, you'll never see that. You'll just see this. So I think I have all my holes pre-drilled. I've got some screws here. Just gonna double check, make sure that this fits before I go ahead and kind of put the wiring harness inside of here and cut out what I need to cut out for that. There we go. Fuse box in a glove box. Had to run all the wires through. If you're wondering how long they are way past the car. So there's plenty of wire here to do, I would say like a Suburban even. So awesome. Now I just gotta throw this in and hopefully it holds up. It should. But yeah, let's just put that in there. So I just went on a little side quest. I wanted to get this piece because I had to paint it and clean it all up anyway, and I wanted to see if I can get the clock to work. So I tore it all apart, cleaned it up, lubed it up, and it works awesome now. I did actually put a small group of RGB LEDs in there because a lot of this is going to be lit up RGB. So that will be linked into that instead of the normal just light up when you turn the lights on. I have a new power piece coming, auxiliary power, and then I'm just going to use the factory, the knob. It kind of looks like that, same thing, just to keep it classic. But yeah, that's awesome. I painted the background. Everything's painted black now. You know, I polished up the lens, and that just looks awesome. First thing I'm going to wire up is my light switch. So I got my wires all ran. They're clearly labeled. Comes with an awesome book, the Painless kit does. Following this one because I have the older GM style light switch. It came with the end and it had these in there predetermined, but I depinned it. Don't want that. The kit comes with new ends here that I can use. So anytime you can just terminate the end where it needs to be terminated, it just, you know, eliminates one less point of failure if it were to ever happen. So yeah, I'm just gonna put all these ends on here, plug them into the appropriate spot on the plug, plug it in, and that should be done on that. Yup, still at it. So this is one little tip I think that some people might be able to benefit from. I'm not using a dimmer switch in the traditional sense. I don't have one on my column, and I don't want to run one on the floor. So I'm going to use one of my 4 momentary switches that I have in the dash there as a negative source. So it'll have a ground going in, and then when you push the button, it'll send ground out. It will come into this relay for the brights and the lows. So that's what will trigger it. And then for power, I got it going into 30, and then it tees off, and then it supplies power to the relay. So that way, you know you have a fused power source. 87A is low beam, 87B is high beam. So whenever I click it, it'll go from high beam to low beam, high beam to low beam, but it'll only have power when the lights are on. I think that's a pretty trick. And these have like little notches. It's hard to see. So this relay will literally be tied into the entire system. Took me quite a while to get this knocked out, but this is a filler panel I made. This is gonna like sit up flush against here. I'll show you that here in a minute. But it is my main power circuits, everything like that. So I have main power coming in off the battery. This is a kill switch. Off the kill switch, it goes into a 150 amp breaker. So instead of a fuse, it's a breaker, which I like better just in case something happens. You can figure out the issue and then you don't have to like hunt down one of those giant fuses. That sucker will just reset it. And then off from there, it steals power up to a fuse block. I'm gonna fuse block 4 section. I have a fuel pump and the transmission fan. Fuel pump, they both, both of them come into these relays here, and each one is triggered by the Holley Terminator X. That's what these 2 wires are for. So this is a positive trigger for the fuel pump, and this is a negative trigger for the electric fans for the transmission, because that thing is literally like right underneath here. And then I got my main power coming off of here also, and that goes all the way up front to the starter there. And then I have my ground cable here. That is actually grounded to the frame, like directly below here. And then this is my amp wire right here. So that's all set up too with the fuse block there. So this will all be hidden by the battery, and everything's starting to run up front here. And this white wire here, I'll show you when I do the doors later, but this is the positive wire for some lighting. So there's a light strip all up underneath there, and then I put a trigger, like a pressure trigger right here, and then this piece here on the hinge. So when I close it, it'll push that, turn it off, open up the trunk, automatically turn that light on, so it'll illuminate all of this mess that I got going on here. So I'm gonna go ahead. this is done. So I can put that in, put the battery in, hook everything up, make sure my kill switch is off, but I can actually turn my kill switch on and I can actually start testing stuff now. So that's really nice. This is kind of what was holding me back in order to get moving on everything else up there. So yeah, let me put this all together. I'll show you a second. There you go. Everything's hooked up. Battery cables. These things are just like laying in here. I really like these. I got them on Amazon, so you can like, I don't know if you can see, but they use a main lug here so you can, you know, put multiples on, and then it has this silicone cover. It comes up and covers over top of it. It's really nice. Cleans it up really well. And then I don't have the Terminator X system hooked up yet, but I do have these two ran, and then they'll go on the posts on the backside. But if I should, like I had to test this, if I trip that switch right there, that light should turn on or the car burns to the ground. We're gonna see. We're gonna test this out. Yeah, awesome. Like I said too, like this is on a pressure switch. So when the trunk closes, hits this guy right here, turns that off, trunk opens, that comes on. First little bit of power, done. Next thing I gotta throw in is this new wiper motor. So this is a 12-volt replacement piece directly for, I think 49 to 52, is that what it says? Yep, 49 to 52. I got this on yogis.com, but if you just type in the Google searches, it'll come up. These are quite expensive though. I think it was like 280 bucks, I think, shipped to my house. But totally worth it. 12-volt system. If I ever get caught in the rain, got 2 speeds of wiper motors. And for the switch, here it is. I'm not going to put it predominantly on the dash because I don't really plan on driving the car in the rain all that much. So it's going to like get mounted up underneath. But I'll show you what it all looks like when that's all done. All right, next up, I have my fans to wire up, and I'm going to use Painless Performance, one of their fan kits meant for like a Terminator X system. So basically, I'll have my hot side coming off of my alternator because it's the closest source, going to this pole here as battery, then off accessory source. That's where this wire go. You have to make sure it's this wire because this wire also powers that side of the relay to tell it to, you know, and then off of there, that's your power for your fan. And then you have to find another ground source. But this is your ground trigger. It has to be a ground trigger from the Terminator X in order to make work. So yeah, I'm just gonna find a nice spot to hide these and wire it all up. Got the main set of fans all wired up. I'm gonna tidy up these wires a little bit more, just kind of cover them up, but you really won't see them the other way because the intake goes over there. Anyway, I'm just getting anal about it. But here are the breakers, 2 of them. I got 1 relay in because I'm using 1 relay per set of fans instead of 1 relay 4 fans because they're a little bit smaller. They don't take nearly as much amperage as like a big fan would. And then I would just use a single one. But these 2 smaller ones, I think that 1 setup can handle those 2. If I'm wrong, maybe I'm wrong. I'll come back, I'll revisit it. But I should be able to test this thing out now and see how much pull these things have. All right, so everything's hooked up. And because it's a ground trigger from the ECU, where is it? It's here. I'm just gonna touch this to the ground where the block is grounded and it should turn on. What a piece of paper. Hold on. Got it. Okay. So a piece of fairly thick construction paper. That works pretty good. Awesome. Now I just got the front one. Sorry. Now I just got the front ones to wire up. Here's something that kind of sucked. I guess Amazon quality at its finest. I went to go wire this thing up and the ground wire just pulled completely out. So I ended up having to like resolder that sucker in there after tearing the entire fan apart. But it should work now. And then I'm gonna throw it all back together and continue wiring. Front set's all wired up. Finally, it actually took me a really long time to do because of that whole wire issue that this fan had. But it should. Nice. Cool. All the fans work. I apologize. It's honestly been a couple of days. I've just been plugging away at the wiring, and I don't know, honestly, where I left you last, but I'll just give you a little bit of an update on how far I am. So if I flip this, got the trunk lights and the dimmer switch. I think I told you about that already. And then we'll go up front here. So I have all this main harness coming back through here. This is all hooked up in here. So this is auxiliary power. So this will do my power windows and heated seats, power in, and then that's an auxiliary because I want to put like a USB port for charging my phone and stuff inside of the center console that I plan on building. And then this massive thing is my amp wire because my amp and stuff is going to live right underneath here. A lot of the shifter stuff is hooked up, everything but the line lock and the what's the other, trans brake. That's what this other one is for. But neutral, safety, and reverse lights are on, so that's set to go. I mean, I still have a bunch more wires in order to handle, but the main loom, you can see, like, it goes up in here. Like, this is for radio, and this is for another auxiliary. But it's just, it takes a lot in order to plan it all out and run each wire kind of like individually and then groups. And it just, honestly, it hurts my brain. And I would do a terrible job of explaining everything that I'm doing. And the video would be like 8 years long in order for me to get it done. So I just have to like sit and focus. Here's something kind of cool. So this is a magnetic switch here. So it's a ground trigger. So the other magnet's up there. And then I have it switched and hooked up to LED. So every time I open and close this, it's off and it's on. So it's just a nice little light inside the glove box in order for me to see all my organization. If anything was to ever go wrong, like, I can quickly open that up and know exactly where everything is without having to use a flashlight or anything like that. Oh, here's a big one. So key on, both screens work. I don't have the Terminator X hooked up to the battery right now, but this is all powered up and working nicely. Like, if I flip my blinkers, it registers inside the dash, which I think is really cool. I messed around with the dash a little bit in order to get a good layout that I like. But right now I'm actually working on these switches right here. So there's nothing hooked up to these. So that will be brights. That will be like interior lighting because I want to do some accent lighting inside here, so that'll turn that on and off. This one will be the trans brake because I want the button on the steering wheel to operate both trans brake and two-step. But if I push this button to turn it off, it will only operate two-step. Kind of complicated, but kind of not, if that makes sense. And then this will be my line lock safety switch. So push that on, it will make the line lock button here work. It will complete the circuit so that, you know, if this is off, if I was to ever accidentally hit this, nothing would ever happen. Just a good safety measure. I'll show you my harness that I've got going on for that. So that's just what I've been working on, right? Kind of complicated, but kind of not. My one suggestion is, like, make a roadmap. Make a roadmap of like everything that you plan on doing. Like, I've done this enough times that I kind of know where everything's going. But I've erased and written on this board so many times for every little grouping of wires that I've done, because it just helps you to remember. Because you'll think that you'll remember, you won't. Trust me. Get a whiteboard, get a pen and paper, whatever you need in order to make sure that you can make sure all your circuits are complete and where they need to be when you got something as complicated as this. And so the shifter is in reverse. So that is the light, the rear light. It's just an cheap ass LED light bar thing that I hooked up to the frame, but it provides tons of light for reverse. So that's what the reverse light does. So that's what the green wires are on the shifter. Put that in reverse, that thing pops on. That's why it's on, because that's in reverse. But yeah, I'm gonna get this all knocked out right now. Actually, this all needs to be cleaned up. That needs to be finished. Let's do that right now. And it's just that quick, like literally that quick. Ignore the fact that now it's dark out and it is like 4 to 5 hours later, but this is done. I went on so many wiring side missions. It was unbelievable, because it's like, I just wanted to make sure that I could run everything through the firewall. So now everything that I need is pretty much out of the car that needs to be out of the car, and everything under here is pretty much done. All my inputs and outputs for the Holly are hooked up. Added a couple more relays inside in order to control, like whenever the AC kicks on, a few things have to happen. Like I wanted the fans to kick on automatically whenever I turn the AC on. I also have an air control. So whenever, how do I put this? So whenever the AC kicks on, it'll send a signal to the Terminator X to say, hey, get a little bit more extra load on the engine. Let's bump up the RPM, and that's controllable. So that's one of my inputs that I burned for that. I control. Yes, but the harness is done, and everything should be plug and play, and everything is hooked up. Because I used just some regular connectors here. Everything's good to go. So these are just some grounds. And then these two are like power and ground for my interior lights. I think I explained that earlier, but I'm gonna plug this in and then everything should work. Those buttons should light up. That's all I really care about, is these buttons lighting up. That's all I want. So that was a huge inconvenience to get underneath there and plug them all in because it's so tight behind here, but got it done. So if I turn this key on now, bam. Blue lights, it's all I wanted, to be honest with you. Blue lights. So what does it control? So this one's brights. So if I click that, my brights will go on. If I click that one, that will supply power and ground to those two wires right there, which will control like my interior accent lighting. And then I think this one is line lock. Okay, so top button here is my line lock. If I undo it, nope, that one is trans brake, sorry. So that one, see, I even gotta learn. I don't wanna label them either. So this one is line lock. There, you can hear it clicking. Off, nothing. So it's just kind of a safety thing because I don't want like me to accidentally hit it, that click. So the bottom one is trans brake, right? So you can hear that clicking. This one will always be active because you have to have your trans brake armed, I guess, when you want to reverse. So if I was to go into reverse and try to back the car up, it will not go unless I hit that. What else? And then this guy that's wired in right here. So I have it, I guess, underneath the dash here. But this is where my steering wheel button plugs in. And the whole point of this button here is that it deactivates the button from sending a signal to the trans brake. It will still send a signal though to the Holley ECU in order to tell it that I want my rev limiter set. So it's my two-step, but my two-step is also my trans brake. So they can kind of go side and side, together or separate. Does that make sense? Makes sense in my head. So it's just a nice way to do it. So I don't have to run off my trans brake. I can run foot brake and then hit it. I can go up to 3,000. It should be fine. So I'm not like completely beating the crap out of this thing, even though it should be able to handle it. But it's just an option. I just wanted that option. But yeah, all that is done. But I'm gonna call it quits for tonight and pick it back up tomorrow. I don't know what idiot decided to put AC in this car, but it was a pain in the butt to get back in there because before I didn't have a glove box inside there so I could reach my hand in there and tighten all my hoses and lines. You really can't see it, but there's no room in there and they all had to be fitted up. Big pain in the butt. It isn't finalized in its form. It's got to be tweaked tiny bit, but it's just sitting in there loosely right now because I still have this cover to put in, and that cover actually ties kind of into the bracket that holds the AC unit up. But it is all wired in, and that's good to go. It's not completely plumbed yet because I still have to get back in there for a few other things. I do have all my wires ran up front here that need to be. So I need to build a filler panel for right there in order to cover that up. I basically took a paper template here and I just pressed on where all the holes are because I have nutserts inside there. And then I'm just gonna cut it out of some thinner ABS plastic, make a nice shape out of it, and then cut a hole in it, and I should slide all the wires through. I have a rubber grommet around here somewhere that's gonna go inside there in order to case all the wires. I don't know where it is though. I'll have to find it, but let me knock this out and I'll show you. 5 hours later, there's that panel because I got all of the wiring done up front here. Everything's done. I got headlights in. I've got my park lights, turn signals in, because these are modified in order to accept a blinker, because back then they didn't have blinkers. And it's actually, these are LED. It looks so cool. So I'm gonna, what else? Okay. So this has a pump, you know, to circulate the water. I wanted it on a switch, so if I ever turn the key on and I don't want the pump on, I can, you know, on or off. So that's what that little guy does right there. The only thing I have left to wire up is the kick for the air conditioning. So that's like the binary switch. That's what it's called. So I just have to run one wire from the binary switch to the AC compressor, and it is done. Done. Wiring is done for the most part. I still have interior lights to do and a stereo, but man, that was so much work. So I do want to show off the lights. Bam! There we go. It's just so cool to have like retro looking lights, you know, in these factory lenses. Like, it just doesn't, I mean, when you get those weird LED lights and stuff like there, in my opinion, I just think that looks dumb. But yeah, if you guys made it this far in the video, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Huge shout out to Painless Performance. I couldn't have done this without them. That kit, highly recommended. Everything's labeled. The book is just such a good guideline in order to know exactly where everything goes, and then you just kind of make it up as you go from there. I mean, obviously I went a little bit above and beyond on how tedious I am with my wiring, because it has honestly been 2 weeks for this video to come out, but it's done. The majority of the wiring is done, and next up, guess what? We're gonna fire it up. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you on the next one.